April, Game Pass, tons of great games coming. We'll go over what we know is coming so far. We have a lot of information about PlayStation, the exclusive deals that we have talked about here previously, and you see people debating it online with games like Black Myth Wukong. Was there an exclusive deal signed? It looks like there is some more hints towards that being the case. So we will go over that. We have more information about Japan Studios and why it closed down. Starcraft, it could be coming back finally as Xbox is looking at partners to create some more content in the universe. So we'll talk about that plus some more things. But before we continue, if you do enjoy daily gaming news and content, make sure to hit the subscribe, share the video, like the video, all of that stuff. And I see many of you who do watch here on a daily basis are not subscribed. So I would appreciate it if you did hit the subscribe button to help this channel grow. But for now, let's jump into it. So April is tomorrow, and we are going to be getting lots of games dropping into Game Pass, at least right now that we know of. There is already a big list here, and there's going to be more games that we haven't heard of it. Obviously, when we do get the Game Pass announcements, we get 2 a month. There are some surprises that are always within those announcements. April is shaping up to be a big month across just gaming in general, of course, with the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct that is also this week. But if you are looking to see what can you play within the Game Pass subscription service, what is known, April is looking like an absolutely phenomenal month for Xbox Game Pass. One of the better months that we have had this year, maybe one of the better months that we have had in the last 2 years or so, because there is some great stuff here that we are going to be able to play. So first of all, South of Midnight, this is coming April 8th. And this is Compulsion Games' third entry into developing games. I hope this is their big coming out party. I hope it is a decent game. I've played the other two that they did make with Contrast and with We Happy Few. I enjoyed Contrast. I thought it was okay. It was a decent game. It was fun enough for me to go through and finish it. We Happy Few, I did not end up finishing it. It just fell off for me as I continued, and I just didn't feel like I need to put any more time in it. But South of Midnight absolutely has my attention from the art style and the story that they're going with and where it's located and everything. It looks very, very cool. We have Commandos Origins coming on April 9th, which is interesting drop here into the service. Descenders next April 9th as well. And this is one of those games that it's very fun to play. This comes via the same people who have made multiple games like this from No More Robots. They've published that first Descenders game, Hypnospace Outlaw. I mean, they've published a lot of games that people do enjoy, and then you have Descenders next year. Soccer Story, that's actually a pretty fun one that I did end up playing. So coming from a publisher that has put out just fun content and fun games, whether you're a big fan of them or not, generally they are relatively fun. So I'm very excited to see what this one is all about. Blueprints, which is looking very interesting, more so now than it has in the past, simply because Shuei Yoshida said that this is one of those games that PlayStation, as you know, he was the head of indie, went out there and said that this could be a game of the year game. So that was surprising. It wasn't really on my radar, but now it is. You have Tempopo on April 17th, and then you have another big one here, Claire Obscure Expedition 33 on April 24th, and Towerborn coming here on April 29th to the console. And as we know, with Towerborn, it has already been out on PC, and the console version is going to be coming here with some additional features, additional content, and everything to be able to jump in and play. So for me, April's absolutely just stacked. Like there are 4, 5 games here that I do want to play. I have no idea how I will get to them. I'll probably just end up playing 1 or 2 in April and then putting the others in my backlog. But South of Midnight, absolutely want to jump into that. I do want to try out Descenders next. Blueprints is now a game that I will end up trying out. Then Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is one of my most highly anticipated games in 2025. So very cool that we're going to get that at the end of the month and get it in Game Pass day one. And then Towerborn. I love these styles of games. I've played the similar ones to this in the past, those side-scrolling action RPGs. The art style does look cool. So I want to try these games out. I want to play them all. There's just not enough time in the day with how stacked Game Pass is right now for the games that we do know that are coming, and there will be more coming with the announcements that do come out on the Tuesdays, the bi-weekly Tuesdays, where they generally make the Xbox Game Pass announcements. Okay, let's talk Starcraft. Starcraft is a game that I grew up with. I loved it. Starcraft 2 was a huge launch for me. Played a lot of that. Was never very good at it, but I always had fun playing StarCraft. And I've been waiting for some news about something else within the universe of StarCraft. Obviously, there was that canceled game with StarCraft Ghost. It would be cool if they brought something similar like that back out and made a third person style of StarCraft game. I think they could do a lot of that. You take a look at a game like Space Marine, they could definitely do something similar to that with StarCraft, just kind of with that style of gameplay and everything. Even like Gears of War, you could do something similar with StarCraft. So I think there's a lot they could do. And it looks like they are looking at something here. It looks like something is in the works. Xbox is gearing up for some more content in the StarCraft universe. We have this here from Hazardor Gaming saying Microsoft and Blizzard are looking to expand the StarCraft universe with Korean devs such as NCSoft, Nexon, Netmarble, and Krafton, and reportedly with unprecedented competition to get the rights. So they are in the very early stages of something here within the StarCraft universe. I wonder exactly what it would be. Would it just be an expansion? Maybe StarCraft 3, they're going to work with a partner to make it. Is it going to be a spin-off game? We do not know, but they are in the very early stages. We're not going to hear about this, I don't think, anytime soon. They're trying to find a partner to help make something here in the StarCraft universe, and probably going to each one of these developers and publishers, seeing what would be the best fit. Maybe there's going to be bids. Who knows exactly how it is going to work, but something is in the works here. And fingers crossed, we will hear about this in the next year or so. Once that deal or partnership does get made, I am sure there will be an announcement of some sort. All right, let's talk Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. I'm excited for this one. I've already talked about this before. Like, I'm getting the collector's edition. I got the collector's edition of the first one. I love these games. They're part of my childhood. And one of the things that was always great about the Tony Hawk games was the soundtrack. Some of the best soundtracks in gaming, especially back when they did come out. But there has been fans that have noticed here that many of these songs that were in the original 3+4 are missing from this remaster. And that's kind of disappointing. You have to ask why they would do this, and you would originally think licensing. They would have to get probably these songs relicensed. I don't see why anybody would say no to that, because they're older songs, gives them exposure again to a new generation and a new crowd of gamers. So to me, it would be a no-brainer. I don't see how that would be difficult. And it seems like that really wasn't the reason. The reason why some songs are missing is because of Tony Hawk himself. He's claiming here of the decision not to bring back many classic songs for the upcoming Pro Skater 3+4 soundtrack was his, after some fans expressed disappointment over the revealed track list. This is specifically what he does say. It was my choice to pick some different songs by the same artist featured in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 OST. I'm hoping that discovery is half the fun and a big reason that these soundtracks resonated in the first place. So listen and enjoy the ride. More to come, both old and new. And I mean, that reasoning there is very reasonable. It is very reasonable from his perspective. He's thinking, well, we've heard the other ones before, you know them. Here are going to be some newer songs for you to discover, songs you may have not heard of before when you're playing this game. That is a decent reason. I just think from the nostalgic perspective, there is a lot of people that would have just loved it to be the exact same. I mean, you see that with any IP that gets a remake or a remaster. When things do get changed, things aren't like the original. People who are fans of the originals are up in arms generally, unless it is for completely better reasons than they were. So songs, we'll see. Maybe these songs are going to make the game better. Who knows? But I don't think it's going to take away too much from the game. But it's interesting to see that Tony Hawk made that executive decision. He's got his hand in everything here. Bam Margera, he wasn't going to be in the game. He went out there and said, no, we want him in the game and we're going to scan him no matter, even if everything is completed. Then now he is going to be in this, which that would have been terrible if he wasn't, because he is obviously a main part of Tony Hawk's 3+4. So good on Tony Hawk doing some of those things, making those decisions, making sure this is going to be as faithful as a recreation as possible, while giving us, I guess, a new perspective and a new look at some of the music that we will be experiencing when we do play the game itself. All right, Grand Theft Auto 6, game that is going to overtake the gaming world when it does come out. Whenever the next announcement comes out, it will absolutely overtake everything. It puts other publishers and developers in a tough spot to make sure that their titles stay away from it, because this is one of those games that I believe, even if the game is a completely different genre, it was still could be affected here by GTA 6, simply because online marketing, word of mouth, everything is going to be focused on GTA 6, and everything else will just kind of fade into the background. Strauss Zelnick has commented on what's happening here with the marketing, because we haven't even heard any marketing for this. There hasn't been any push for this, and it's supposed to be coming out this year. And this seems to all be intentional, which makes me do believe that we are getting this game this year. It is going to be coming near the end of 2025. They're just going about it in a different way, continuously trying to increase that anticipation for the game, because it's true. The longer you don't hear about GTA 6, the higher the anticipation comes when any piece of news drops on the internet. People's excitement and anticipation go through the roof. But Strauss Zelnick was interviewed here by Bloomberg, and this is what he has to say about GTA 6 marketing and obviously a few other things in there. He says here, the anticipation for that title may be the greatest anticipation I've ever seen for an entertainment property, and I've been around the block a few times, and I've been in every entertainment business there is. Continues here and says, and we want to maintain the anticipation and the excitement. Goes on, says, we do have competitors who will describe their release schedule for years in advance, and we found that the better thing to do is to provide marketing materials relatively close to the release window in order to create that excitement on the one hand and balance the excitement with unmet anticipation. We don't always get it exactly right, but that's what we are trying to do. So that's why we haven't heard anything as of right now. They do not want to get too far out ahead of this game, but if it is coming out this year, which I do am now believing more and more that it will be, based off of what he is saying, I'm thinking that the marketing campaign is going to be a short time period before the actual release of the game itself. And I've talked about this on previous videos, saying that they don't really need to market this game that much. It doesn't really matter how much they spend on it. It's still going to sell well. I don't know if spending a huge marketing budget on GTA 6 would get millions of more copies sold. I think it's a big enough game, is well known enough. The anticipation is already extremely high. If they dropped it after a month or two, giving the release date, it's going to do fine regardless of how much of marketing there is for it. So all of that, I think they take into account in terms of what they're doing. They probably want to have a smart marketing budget for it, because they could make way more money by saving some money on marketing, putting it into other things. But we will see. Who knows when this release date will be? I'm thinking very close to the end of the year. Maybe there's a major announcement that comes in the summer shows of some sort, or there's a summer announcement, and then we hear that it will be released in the last quarter of 2025, sometime within those months. But GTA 6 is going to be massive no matter what happens when it comes out. And it doesn't really, they don't have to do much. It's going to be huge. All right. Let's talk PlayStation, because we've gone on this topic multiple times, mainly because there's always new information that comes out on it. And specifically when it comes to third-party exclusive deals that PlayStation has made, the big one that a lot of people have talked about is Black Myth Wukong. There has been information that people have said, insiders and everything, that PlayStation did make a deal with Black Myth Wukong. Now, that type of deal, we don't know, but I think the general consensus around this topic is that if they did make a deal, it was trying to get this game ready for the console. PlayStation stepped in, helped with the development at the last moment to make sure that they could hit the release date for console on the PlayStation 5. PlayStation needed this game on PS5 because their first party output has not been very good, or there hasn't been very much of it. So this was a big seller for them. PlayStation sells more in China. All of those things played into PlayStation potentially stepping in here, giving some money, giving some development help, giving something to get the game ready for the console. And even with that, it did not run very well on the PS5. Xbox didn't do that. So with that being said, that could have been some sort of deal that was made near the end of the development cycle for this game. And with that extra help that PlayStation was giving, they said, okay, you have to just release it on PS5 and optimize for Xbox later, and you could put it out later. That's kind of what people are thinking happened. We don't fully know, but now we have a little bit more of a hint here that some deal was actually made. And this comes via Sony Interactive's own website, their own blog post in a Q&A on the SIE blog. This is one of the questions. It says here, how does your team work together to identify great new franchises and titles? There are so many great games that come from seemingly out of nowhere. What's in the secret sauce to make successful IP happen? And they have a relatively long answer. Specifically, they do say this, though, when it comes to some of the games that they have worked with. Annapurna Games, very early on games like Stray. The same approach also led our support of Genshin Impact, Black Myth Wukong, and Stellar Blade, for example. And what do these games all have in common is that they were all, for a certain period of time, either timed exclusive or full exclusives to the PlayStation 5 console, or at least console exclusives. And they put Black Myth Wukong on that list. To me, that is a hint. It's not an exact 100% confirmation that they made an exclusive deal for, but it is definitely a hint here that they were looking at Game Science. They were looking at Black Myth Wukong. They reached out to them, and something came to fruition here, which is probably, at least in my opinion here, the main reason why Black Myth Wukong is still not on the Xbox console. I mean, you have a lot of people asking when this is coming. I think it is because of some sort of deal that was made specifically with development, specifically to get this thing running on the PlayStation 5 and getting it running in a way that people are going to be able to go pick it up and play it on day one, the same time that it did release on PC. I mean, you have Game Science themselves who have come out and they have basically said that they needed a lot more experience developing for consoles to optimize for the Xbox Series S. All of those things play into the fact that they were not equipped, they were not skilled enough, at least at this point. I'm sure they will be in the future, to optimize this game on time for the console without some additional help and some additional resources. And PlayStation seemingly did step up. Now, again, not 100% confirmation. That's my opinion on how it did go. But the fact that they mentioned that game, they could have mentioned other games that they've worked with. Putting Black Myth Wukong in their own SIE post, to me, is a hint that something was going on there behind closed doors. So hopefully one day we will know, we will see, or somehow get information on the actual contract, if there was one, that was signed. All right, let's talk PS5 Pro and VRR. VRR is a great feature. I've actually only experienced it recently, as I did get a new TV, and I wish I would have had a VRR TV from the beginning of this generation. It does just take away a lot of the things that play games on the console, stuttering, FPS drops, and everything. It is awesome. And on Xbox, it has always had the better solution from the beginning. It works very good on the Series X. It's phenomenal. The PS5 Pro, you think, though, would give you a great VRR experience. Seemingly right now, that is not the case. We have this report here from Digital Foundry confirming that the PlayStation 5 and the PS5 Pro have prevalent VRR stuttering problems. They specifically go on here and they show off games with all of the issues itself. But here is some of the issues that right now, if you have a PS5 Pro or a PS5 and you are looking to use VRR, something that you should probably know. They say, until VRR arrived, the most stable performance in console games was to see frame rates locked to 60 or 30 FPS. An even delivery of frames is sent to the display, synchronizing with the refresh rate of the panel. At 60 FPS, a new frame is displayed with each new refresh of the screen. And at 30 FPS, a new frame persists for 2 refreshes, as the name suggests. And VRR operates with variable refresh rate. Instead of console needing to synchronize with the display update, the console itself is in charge of when the refresh happens, typically whenever a new frame is ready to be presented. So that's what it does. But what is the problem here with PlayStation 5? They say the most obvious example of the stuttering issue presenting itself occurs in titles that support 120 Hz VRR with unlocked frame rate games like The Last of Us Part 1 and 2, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and Diablo 4. And what happens here is that the first 20 minutes of gameplay are fine, but at some point soon after that, a noticeable stutter manifests every 8 seconds, give or take a few frames. And the point of VRR is to bring consistency to variable frame rates, and the magic is lost when the game stutters so noticeably in so regular a cadence. They also say they've tested a total of 19 games now, finding that many of the games have the problem while others do not. So the evidence suggests that if the output frame rate of the console does not vary so much, the stutter is less likely to happen. So they've tested out a decent amount of games here, and it's still seemingly having that issue. Now they go into detail here on their own video. I would recommend going to check it out if you want like the nitty gritty as to exactly what has happened. But VRR has been an issue with PS5, I believe, since the beginning of this generation. We've always heard that there were issues with it, and now it's confirming here as well with the PlayStation 5 Pro, which to me is unacceptable for a pro console after all of those years where they could have ended up fixing this. They're charging $700 for it to still be an issue. And with it still happening on the PS5 Pro, now this video bringing it to the forefront, I wonder if there will be some fixes or some updates of some sort to make this feature work better. Because like I said, I started using it recently on the Series X. It makes a big difference here. Less stutters in games and just overall a better experience. Unfortunate though, that's still an issue here, and seemingly a feature you would have expected with the Pro for $700 that would have been ironed out by this point. And finally, we have some more information as to exactly what happened with Japan Studio. As we know, they were a first-party PlayStation studio. They made AA games, really fun games if you look at the catalog of games that they have put out. Games like Gravity Rush, which was one of my favorite games on the PlayStation Vita, Patapon, which is now going to the Nintendo Switch, as that was a big thing at the Nintendo Direct, The Last Guardian. Games like that, where they were smaller, AA style of games, and they were just fun to play. PlayStation ended up shutting them down, and a lot of people were upset when this did happen. And the reality of the situation is now that when you look back at it, I think the decision is even worse than it was when they first went ahead and closed it down. Shuei Yoshida goes into some more depth here as to kind of what happened with Japan Studios and why it was closed down, and it makes it even, I guess, worse when you look at it. He says here, the Japanese creators we worked with came up with some really creative and interesting things, but it always ended up being AA size. That is also the reason why Japan Studios disappeared after I was no longer president of Worldwide Studios. I wonder if he would have sticked on as the president of Worldwide Studios if we would still have Japan Studios. My guess is yes. Especially now when you look at the state of the industry, this decision is even worse than when they first made it back when they did. Because you look at the issues going on in gaming, it's all surrounding AAA games, the budgets and the length of time it takes to develop these games. You need to have AA games filling in the gaps between the major AAA productions because they take longer to make, they cost a lot more. The profit margins on them are harder to get the correct amount of money to be made to satisfy investors, satisfy stockholders. But with AA, you can put them out more often and you can have more hits and make more money off them in general with it costing less to develop them overall. So I think PlayStation today would benefit greatly from still having Japan Studios. Maybe they wouldn't have had to try and make 10 or 12 games as a service game and then cancel a bunch of them. We don't know, but to me, in the way that the gaming industry is right now, one of the major issues, as I've said, is AAA development. AA would have been something to come in there and just make it easier on them. So that was a bad decision back then. I think now it is even worse. But I will end the video here, guys. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.